pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957B1, employment position, Information Services Manager. Item number 2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54566.9B, 2 potential cases. And finally, item number 3, threat to public safety pursuant to Government Code Section 54957A regarding the city manager, information systems, and technology. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any speaker cards from the public?
There are no speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion from council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll now move to closed session.
No, wait, that was threat to public safety?
All right, everyone. At this time, we are going to resume the meeting of December 6, 2021. Councilmember Perez, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Perez,
Here.
Vice Mayor Resendez,
Here.
Mayor Velasquez,
Here.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Police Captain Batano, here. City Manager Miller,
Here.
City Attorney Epperson.
Here.
The amended agenda for the City of Hollister City Council regular meeting of December 6th, 2021 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on December 3rd, 2021 at 4 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. City Attorney, will you please report out from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council discussed in closed session those items agendized for closed session discussion. Regarding item number 1, appointment pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957B1, direction was given to staff. Regarding item number 2, conference of legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54566.9B, City Council considered that matter and gave direction to staff. Regarding item number 3, threat to public safety per Government Code Section 54957A, a motion was made by Councilmember Resendez and seconded by Councilmember Perez to authorize an expenditure of $200,000 from the general fund for public safety improvements via a sole source provider. That motion was adopted unanimously by all 4 members. And then the City Council recessed from closed session at 6:55 p.m. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
We have a couple really cool things. We're going to have a recognition for an Olympic star here. Susanna Brookside. Also, we're going to have a swearing in for a new K-9 officer, Sully. That's going to be cool, too. Susanna Brookshire. I was going to say, don't give me a headbutt. How awesome is it that we have an Olympic star here in our own community? And that must have just been one heck of experience. And here at the city, we're very proud of you, and we're excited to have you here today to receive this recognition for all you have accomplished.
Thank you.
Usually we do a headbutt, but you know. Okay, we don't want to get a picture here. Should I turn around this way? I'm like jumping in the background. Do you want to say a few words?
This way so we can take a picture?
Sure.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Sure, I'll say a few words. I was really happy and proud to represent Hollister and my family, and thank you for this award, and thank you for recognizing me, and it's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Officer Sully. This is Officer Tong's new partner, Officer Sully.
Can you? Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the Hollister Police Department, we're very happy to announce our newest member, K-9 Sully. Super cute, by the way. Him and his human partner, Senior Officer Tong, have been in training, have over 160 hours worth of training, and are ready for the streets. So we are happy to do this. The program itself will be overseen by Sergeant Bo Leland. So we're excited for this to get going.
Awesome.
So,
She's all excited.
I'm just gonna read the oath, and then at the end, we'll do the call. All right. So okay, so I'm just gonna raise my right hand. I, Canine Officer Sully, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will, well and faithfully, discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
And here, we're gonna go ahead and provide him with his badge. He gets a collar badge, and then he gets his real badge. So he's official.
I know. I think that's what he was looking for.
Congratulations, Officer Tong.
He's like, for me? You got something for me? Oh, he is a year.
He seems active, huh? So active. Can you,
Look at those big old feet. Oh, I wish right there. That's right.
can you hold that up so everyone can see it?
Aw, his paw print.
How cute.
More me.
They're so fun.
I wanted to squish it. I'll see you tomorrow evening. Oh, bye. Thank you for coming. You see that puppy have a badge like at the top?
All right, everyone, we're going to now move to the consent agenda. Are there any items that council would like to pull?
Mayor Velazquez.
Yes, sir.
Item number 5, please.
That was cute.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Do we have any items from the public?
There are no items.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. We'll now move back to item A5.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, I was just hoping you could explain how we came to the percentage of the pay raise that is presented in the staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Burns. So I think some of the confusion is we did include the red line version, which actually shows his contract amount starting back in 2018 at a much lower amount. He has had increases like all other employees throughout this time. So it does appear like a major jump when you just compare to that first number, but the difference between his current salary and this salary is in line with the other employees of Hollister.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. That's all I have. Thank you.
So it just covers all those raises in the previous
Correct.
year,
Correct.
base to now.
Correct.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
There are no speaker cards.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So
So
moved,
moved.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that was a tie.
I defer to the Vice Mayor.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion, there's another tie. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you all. We are now going to move to public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. If you are joining us by Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you are joining us by Zoom using a cell phone, please press *9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the City Council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards tonight?
Yes, the first speaker is Robin Pollard.
Good evening, welcome. I think most of you know me. My name's Robin Pollard. I've lived up on Park Hill for 20-some years. The first place I ever went to in Hollister was Park Hill, and then I ended up living there, but that's a separate story. Tonight I'm here to discuss disc golf on Park Hill, and there's a group of guys here in town that are passionate about disc golf, and they travel all over to play disc golf. And about 15 years ago, I met a professor up on the hill. He was measuring out how to put disc golf on Park Hill, and I never saw him again. He was from Monterey Bay, and I think they have a really nice course over there. But there's benefits to having a disc golf course, not only the health benefits, but the economic benefits of a disc golf course. And so the golf guys got a consultant to come out and walk the hill, and I gave him some pointers. And when the stimulus money started rolling in at my house, I bought baskets, and the guys installed them, and we have tees. And as of this weekend, there is now a disc golf course on Park Hill. It's not quite finished. It needs a little bit of trail work from hole to hole, but people can play now, and it's a Christmas gift to the city of Hollister. So I hope you support it, and I see you out there playing someday. Oh, and one other thing. When I was picking up trash up there, the fence that goes around the communication towers has a big opening where you can literally walk in and out, so that you might want to know about that.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
John Roble.
Mayor, City Council members, dignitaries. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hollister 150 sesquicentennial celebration coming up next year. We're going to kick that off with, well, first we have a committee of, I think there's almost 30 people on that committee now that are participating in helping to plan the activities that we're proposing to do, and should be a lot of fun. It's going to get kicked off. Last time we came to City Council on the agenda, we were kind of turned down. We had pretty big hopes and wishes, and some suggestions came out of that meeting. And so the Hollister 150 will now kick off with the Hollister's 4th of July fireworks celebration and the motorcycle rally. And hopefully we'll be able to brand that as the sesquicentennial Hollister Motorcycle Rally or the Hollister 150 Motorcycle Rally, as opposed to just the Hollister Motorcycle Rally. The second weekend, we're looking at maybe Chamber of Commerce putting together an event they're going to call Savor San Benito Festival. That will be a downtown activity. Third weekend, we're looking at the Hollister Downtown Association Street Festival, and again, we'll brand that as the Hollister Sesquicentennial Street Festival, and hopefully we'll be able to focus on old cars and the historic vehicles and things of that nature. The third weekend, we're looking for Parks and Recreation to come out with the Hollister Sesquicentennial Games and Park Fun for Families, and maybe, just maybe, we can include the Park Hill disc golf as part of that weekend activity. That should be a lot of fun. The fourth weekend would be Arts and culture, outdoor activities, and potentially some of that could happen at places like the Historic Park and other parks around town and downtown as well. Maybe even some kind of an old-time type flea market or something of that nature. And then the final weekend, the 6th of August, we would have a large parade downtown with speakers, and certainly we'll get to pat ourselves on the back as city council and others. And of course, we'll be inviting dignitaries from the state and the feds as well to come and join us. Meanwhile, we've been working on letters of support from our various and assorted businesses and individuals and ranches and things. And we're also working on some things that would be things that folks might enjoy having: a 150 calendar, challenge coins, and some T-shirts. Thank you.
Sir.
Rob Rodriguez.
Hello, Council. Rob Rodriguez, lifelong Hollister resident. From the time I could leave the house without parental supervision, I would spend long summer days, early winter mornings down the street at Park Hill with my friends, mainly at the part of Park Hill that is now a housing development. We used to go ride our bikes and spend all day messing around in the sunshine. Well, when I reached middle school, it became a place to push myself as an athlete, both on the bike and running and competing in cross country. When I think about the community that we live in, that I want to live in, I think of a few values that are important to me. I'm thinking of words like health, unity, and some far-reaching words, kind of like conservation. Today, I'm proud to join my community members at this meeting of the people and to share the outcome of our hard work, which hopefully embodies those values that I just mentioned. That'll make us a stronger community. After many hours of planning, seeking advice from multiple professional players, fundraising, Robin did an amazing job, and a ton of plain old hard work, Hollister has its first disc golf course. This course, located close to downtown, accessible to youth, and on land unused for decades, will add a gathering place for community members from all walks of life, create space to hold fundraising tournaments, and add a new cultural dynamic to our small town. Besides all that good stuff, the course is a great addition for tourism. There are popular courses in Santa Cruz, Watsonville, Salinas. Monterey has two of the state-of-the-art courses. Their team is amazing. Club members already volunteering their time to clean up trash. We've added a space for youth, adults, and I know a senior or two that participate in this hobby, so this could be a new hobby for community members. Members involved in the construction include skilled trades workers, retired community members. We even had some recovering addicts who were more than happy to volunteer their time, professional disc golf players, and disc golf enthusiasts who had no connection to our community, but were excited about the opportunity to put up a new course in a community that hasn't seen anything like that. I'm glad that we were able to get this done. I brought this USB drive. It's got pictures of the installation process and the finished course, so you get to see the beautiful views with the disc golf baskets up. I don't know who I can give this to, but
City Clerk.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Bell.
Well, everyone probably already knows me in this town, but I really do agree with the golf dicks in Hollister in Park Hill because I would think it will keep everyone something to do in Hollister, because there's not a lot of things to do in Hollister, California. So, having a disc golf, I kind of think it's a good idea to have a one in Hollister. We don't have we don't have a lot of things to do, and I kind of think it's a good idea to have that in the play. People can stay active. Sometimes people can have to stay inside and been pooped up inside all day and every single day during the pandemic. So having that might be a good change for everybody, because whoever knows, and you get the best views in Hollister, California too as well. So if you go up to Park Hill, #1 rule, if you're up in Park Hill, enjoy the view. So if you're playing disc golf, you have all the views in town. So I refer to you, keep that in mind. And if you see those pictures right there, those pictures will tell you all right there. Trust me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is on Zoom, Susan Logue. We're going to unmute you.
Oh, hi there. This is Susan Logue, a Hollister resident. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. All right. I think I'm going to go to Park Hill. That sounds wonderful. How exciting. I was calling about the Hollister 150 coming up, and I'm really looking forward to the Downtown Association, Historic Society, and City Hall to work on this fantastic celebration coming up, culminating on August 6th, 2022. So I've attended a meeting or two, and I'm really looking forward to how the weekends are going to be represented, and the participation from community is going to be really important. I think it really starts off at July 2nd, I think, and then we'll culminate August 6th. And then every weekend there'll be something going on, a Saturday, something to do. So just really wanted to get the word out. And I think if you call the Downtown Association and speak to Omar at 636-8406, he could direct you to more information and how you can participate. But it sounds really good. I just wanted to say howdy and hope all's well with everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
Thank you. We'll move now to item D1, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll have staff look at the fencing around the cell towers up on Park Hill, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Item D2, sir.
For that one, the HR staff attended Calpella in Monterey, which is a training on the upcoming new labor laws, and it also deals with risk management also. And PD, you have anything?
We had Sergeant Weiss and Officer Wells attend active shooter instructor course. And then for myself, I completed management course, which was a 3-week course. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, great, thank you. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move to item E1, public hearing. Who will be presenting on this? Would this be you?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, what you have before you is a proposal to create a city ordinance making it unlawful to park a vehicle in a driveway or at the end of the block, blocking a sidewalk. We have dealt with many complaints from pedestrians who walk around cars, parked partially in the driveways of homes and also blocking sidewalks. Pedestrians have to, in some cases, walk into the roadway to go around these cars. This ordinance is very similar to a vehicle code section, but it allows the police department to handle these violations in an administrative citation way. Staff requests that you hold a public hearing, read the title only, waive full reading, and introduce the ordinance of the City of Hollister, adding Chapter 10.20.105, vehicles and traffic restriction, the parking of vehicles that block a sidewalk.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council?
Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Captain, can you tell me at whose expense will those vehicles be towed?
That is at the owner's expense.
Thank you, Captain. That was my question, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? All right, this time we will open a public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Carol Lemnor, we'll go ahead and unmute you.
Thank you. Good evening, council and mayor. I just wanted to thank you very much for this consideration of this item. It's always been a concern of mine. So I wanted to thank you for that. I also want to say, I hope that if it passes, that when somebody calls, that it'll be a timely they might not be there too long. I see it in the downtown, maybe over there on the restaurant there on South and San Benito. They're parking there and they block the sidewalk. But thank you for doing something about it. I really appreciate it, and I hope that people will call in or use that software to get that done. Thank you.
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. This time we will close public hearing. Is there any other questions or comments from council? I do have a question, Captain. It is very frustrating to see those cars when I do walk quite a bit at night. The question I have, I also see cars parking half on the street and half on the sidewalk or half on the park strip area. Is that a violation in this also?
That would be a different ordinance, but it can, depending on how far into the sidewalk they are, because I know like sometimes back in the days they used to do it on 4th Street, where they used to be half, and then South Street is also very popular for that. So that can also fall into it, but if we can have more of a specific ordinance for
Each of those
that
items.
issue would be best.
And that would go also for the ongoing problem of cars parking on the lawns?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's something we'd come back for on a different item. I just want to verify that. Perfect. Thank you so much.
One follow-up.
Go ahead, sir.
So we're gonna give a $50 fine for the first violation and up to a maximum of $250 for each violation after that. I didn't see, or maybe I'm just not reading it. Are we also towing
If they're blocking, it's a tow. Yes.
if they're blocking? Is that worded in here, or am I not seeing it?
No, you're probably just seeing the ordinance on its own, but if it's blocking a driveway, blocking the sidewalk for allowed to people, then we can go ahead and tow, and it would be at owner's expense. But they
Okay.
would also be issued a citation. We normally try and attempt to locate the owner prior to doing that, though.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We'll now move to item E2.
Thank you, Mayor. I have Swena Stotler for Integrated Waste to present on this item.
Okay, is this on? Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. Today we have myself with Integrated Waste Management, as well as Deborah Kaufman with R3 Consulting on the line. As a reminder, per the Joint Powers Integrated Waste Management Agreement signed in 1995 between the County, Hollister, and San Juan Bautista, the Integrated Waste Management Regional Agency was formed, and the county was placed as lead agency in order to staff integrated waste management programs, to meet waste and recycling state mandates, as well as reporting requirements for the agency members. For today's IWM agenda items, we are first providing you with a brief presentation on California Senate Bill 1383, also known as California's short-lived climate pollutant reduction strategy. And then we will dive into the Edible Food Recovery Ordinance and MOU. This presentation is a 2-in-1. Our current public hearing item is complementary to the following agenda item for the MOU. So we intend to discuss both items during this presentation, but a separate action will be needed on the two. It is our first recommendation that you hold a public hearing for the Edible Food Recovery Ordinance that is consistent and compliant with SB 1383 requirements. And secondly, it's our recommendation that you accept the memorandum of understanding between the member agencies for establishment of an edible food recovery program and to define member agency roles. It's important to note that the Board of Supervisors recently passed a resolution that enables the county as lead agency to apply for a SB 1383 rural exemption on behalf of the regional agency. If approved by the state, this would exempt the agency members from mandatory organics collection requirements and several other associated requirements until December 31st of 2026, or until we reach a population of 70,000, whichever comes first. However, regardless of the exemption, there is compliance still needed at each jurisdiction in establishing the edible food recovery program with enforceable mechanisms and inspection, among a few other requirements that we're going to dive into later. And that's why we're here today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Deborah, who will be leading this presentation, and she can go ahead and screen share.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation. I have a presentation that will be about a little less than 10 minutes.
Okay, we can step back. One of the policies we set a while back was a 5-minute limit on the presentation. Were you aware of that?
We did get that, so we'll do our best to keep it at 5 minutes. But again, we're combining 2 items into one. Deborah, do you think we can keep it at 5?
I'll do my best.
Do your best and give us an overview. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Set the timer for 5 minutes, please.
We'll see how it goes. Okay, good evening. So to begin, excuse me. These are the items that I'll be discussing this evening. A new state law known as Senate Bill 1383 will impact how we manage solid waste in California. SB 1383 aims to keep organics out of landfills to reduce emissions that contribute to climate change. There are 2 overarching requirements. The first requirement is for the state to reduce 75% by 2025. And organic waste for the purposes of this includes green waste, wood waste, food waste, but also fibers such as paper and cardboard. And the second requirement is for the state to reduce the amount of edible food disposed of in landfills by 20%. There's 2 main components of SB 1383 regulations for jurisdictions. One is an organics collection and recovery program. And as Selena mentioned, rural jurisdictions are eligible for a waiver from this requirement due to the difficulty and expense of establishing organic waste collection in rural communities. The other main requirement is the development of an edible food recovery program, which rural jurisdictions are not exempt from and will be the focus of the remainder of the presentation. I think we can, I'm maybe able to skip over this. As Selena mentioned, the county and the jurisdictions within it are eligible for this waiver for the organic waste collection program. And the county is the lead for the Integrated Waste Management Regional Agency, will apply for the waiver on behalf of the cities in the county and the unincorporated area. But the rural exemption doesn't exempt the cities from the edible food recovery requirement. So the requirements are outreach to affected businesses by jurisdictions or the county. And the affected businesses are the largest food generating businesses. I'll describe those in a little more detail. It's also requiring those businesses to enter into an agreement with a food recovery organization or service, inspecting those businesses to make sure that they have agreements in place and that they're not intentionally spoiling donatable food, and determining whether there's enough food bank capacity to handle the edible food and if additional capacity is needed. This shows you the Tier 1 and Tier 2 generators. Food generating businesses impacted by the regulations are divided into these 2 categories. And Tier 1 generators are the very largest food generating businesses, and they need to comply by January 1, 2022, even though enforcement doesn't start until 2024. And these are the largest groceries and supermarkets, basically, and the large food distributors and wholesale food vendors. Tier 2 are your largest restaurants and hotels, large venues and events. So the actual ordinance includes the regulatory requirements for these businesses, and it includes an enforcement mechanism. So these businesses are required to send edible food that they would otherwise have landfilled to a food bank or food pantry, and also they need to have a written agreement in place with a food recovery organization and maintain specified records. Food bank. Okay, so we'll just go into the summary of the requirements. This shows you a timeline of key activities. The schedule includes adoption of the MO next month with the second reading and adoption, and the county would start outreach soon thereafter. First requirements, as I mentioned, for large supermarkets go into place early 2022, and requirements for other generators in 2024, with enforcement beginning in 2024. This is just more detail on the key dates. The county will take on the responsibility for developing capacity planning and developing an estimate of needed food recovery capacity in the county and in the cities. The MOU responsibilities are outlined as shown here. This shows the plan for expected responsibilities. There are other SB 1383 requirements not covered in the ordinance and that are mentioned here, including buying recycled content paper and complying with CalGreen and the water efficient landscaping ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I made my 5 minutes.
You did good. Thank you.
Tried to skip over a
Knew
few
you could do it.
details there.
We have that Olympic feeling tonight. We can do this.
Happy to answer any questions, and I know, well.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. Two, first of all, did I understand it correct from the presentation that we as a city council are required to create, adopt, pass an MOU and a city ordinance by the end of 2021?
By the beginning of 2021, by the end of 2021, the beginning of 2022, the requirement is to adopt an enforceable mechanism. That would be the ordinance that's in front of you tonight. And the MOU is to take on many of the responsibilities of the program.
Thank you. And my second question is, who pays for the regulation and the enforcement? Is this put on the business, or is this put on the city to fund the payment for that enforcement?
Deborah, I'll take a stab at that, and then if you want to jump in. But right now, when we were looking at the Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses who might be applicable in San Benito County, it's not appearing that we have too many. So this extra work and staff time to inspect, enforce, educate, it might not be something that affects our budget at IWM, but if it does, we would bring that to the local task force, which right at this time, Rick Perez is a member, and we would discuss options to increase our budget and look to the city to approve that budget, because there is cost sharing between the regional agency members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 132 and on page 155, there's some bullet points. One of them says all other. I forget the exact language, but I think that's a little too ambiguous for me, and I need it clearly defined. So what does that mean, all other? And if you don't have the answer for it, I'm wondering if we could maybe get that defined and bring it back on the consent agenda, because that could basically mean anything, right? So.
I'm sorry, which page, Roland?
132, there's some bullet points, and then 155. I just wrote it down.
I think your page numbers might be different than mine. I have 1 through 8. Oh.
The packet. So I can find it. Hang on one second. So it's under the city's responsibilities, right? and it says be responsible for all other applicable SB 1383 requirements not designated to the county. So I just need that defined. I don't know what those are. And
Those would be the items that I had mentioned in my slide that are not relevant to the edible food recovery program. And those would include the city is required to buy recycled content paper and also to comply with Cal Green and MWELO. Now, the Cal Green and MWELO requirements were already in place. So that shouldn't be, an issue. But those are the extra items that are not covered by the MOU.
perfect. So then I would suggest that we just include that language when we make the adoption for the resolution. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Perez? I do have just a comment. I get very frustrated with state unfunded mandates where they're telling us what we're going to do and how they're going to make us pay for it, which really means how we have to turn around and tell the citizens that we need to raise their rates once again for these mandates. And at this point, we already have 3 cans in our yard. This is going to be a 4th can eventually. It will be eventually. And this is hard for a lot of us. And I just want to express my frustration on this. I mean, there's some good ideas and important things here, but when it goes down to the neighborhood level, I think it just becomes tough. And I've seen these introduced over the years now where it starts off with good intentions and then eventually the bill comes and we're frustrated as consumers or as residents of the state of California. So just wanted to point out my unhappiness as far as unfunded mandates, and I hope our senator and assembly person will take that into consideration in the future. At this time, I will open for public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We have no speaker cards and no speakers on Zoom.
Thank you. This time we will close public hearing.
So, Mayor, just on staff, so we recommend that you hold a public hearing, which you just did, read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce an ordinance adding to Title 8, Health and Safety, Chapter 8.12.180 of the City of Hollister, Ordinance of the City of Hollister for Edible Food Recovery Program.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
So you want us to read that whole thing off, is what you're saying? Okay. So I'll move to adopt read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce an ordinance adding to Title 8, Health and Safety, Chapter 8.12.180 of the City of Hollister, an ordinance of the City of Hollister for Edible Food Recovery Program, with the language added that was presented by the speaker instead of the words all other.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We will now move to item F1.
I'll have Selena continue her presentation.
So that was the memorandum of understanding that we had also presented to the city council related. It's already gone to the City of San Juan Bautista and was approved about 2 weeks ago, as well as the Board of Supervisors approved. So the last approval needed is the City Council of Hollister, and we are just using this MOU to establish the roles. We're county's lead agency, and we'll continue those responsibilities that Deborah had defined earlier. Deborah, did you want to add anything?
No, just that the changes that you would like to see are to the MOU.
So we would need to go to the City Council of San Juan Bautista if you want to proceed with that, as well as to the County Board of Supervisors again for discussion.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Councilmember Sendes?
Thank you, sir. I think the Councilmember Burns was alluding to it. There says there's no fiscal impacts, but we already do have a fiscal impact based on the JPA that we have. So you said we were paying into an existing JPA already. So can you just tell us what that cost is? Do you know off the top of your head or not?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. It changes from year to day based on the services, staffing that we have. Brett, do you have that off the top of your head? No, I could present that at a later
Perfect.
date.
Or yeah, if you could just email it to us. I
Yeah.
was just curious.
Yeah, and I'll say that with the current JPA, SB 1383 is its own ballgame. So these roles and responsibilities would not be covered under the JPA. So what we're trying to do is continue the county as lead agency where we will take on those responsibilities so that you don't have to come January 1st of 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Burns?
So did I hear in the presentation that if we want to make the amendments that Vice Mayor Resendez proposed to clarify that would then have to go back to the San Juan Bautista City Council and the board?
I believe so, yeah. So it would be my staff recommendation that we approve the MOU as is. But again, that is
So from my perspective, I would like to see that go back then, because I think that's important that we get that clarification now versus try and clarify things after the fact. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have any public comment?
We have no speaker cards and there's no speakers on Zoom.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2021-219 with the recommendation that the language presented by the presenter is included instead of the words all other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Nay. Not the way it's read. I don't think we should have to go back.
3-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item F2.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, what you have before you is the second reading with the City Council amendments passed at the November 15, 2021 City Council meeting. Those amendments are highlighted in text of the report. Staff would request you read by title only, waive full reading, and adopt an ordinance number 1203, amending Title 5 Business License and Regulations and adding Chapter 5.46 Alcoholic Beverage Service.
Thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
there any questions from council?
Nope.
Quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor Resendez?
Thank you. I've already had a conversation with the city manager about planning on expanding the downtown cameras. It's not directly related to this item, but I was wondering about language about pulling the licenses. I don't think that we can include language for us to pull the license, so to speak. That's a matter from ABC. Maybe that we recommend it. I don't know. Or if is it just assumed if they're not complying with the ordinance, then we have the authority to ensure that their license are pulled, or we make a recommendation. I don't know if you've got information about that.
I believe you can make a recommendation with ABC, but also, if it's my understanding that the city can also pull their license as well.
Yeah, our municipal code says that we do not use our business license as a regulatory item, but we can bring that item to future council meetings to change that ordinance if you want, or municipal code if you want to.
I think we should, in my opinion, just to clear up the language so that we can, moving forward, we won't have these problems, because essentially they can do what they want, but we've got no authority over their license, so it doesn't really matter. I think it's a moot ordinance if we can't pull their license, in my opinion. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you, sir.
You can bring that up in your comments, sir. Councilmember Burns?
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Miller, I'd actually like to see something in language that would say suspended pending revocation with a referral to ABC. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Wait, who was this one first?
I defer to the Vice Mayor.
I'm gonna guess you're the second?
Always.
Second, okay. Mr. Burns is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 4-0. We'll now move to item F3.
Good evening, City Council and Mr. Mayor. I am Charlie Boudreau. I am the Fire Marshal for Hollister Fire Department. And what I bring you today is another state-mandated Senate bill. It's Senate Bill 1205. And what Senate Bill 1205 states that it's a resolution for the City Council of the City of Hollister acknowledging that Hollister Fire Department performed our inspections of certain occupancies required annually in pursuant to sections 131.46.4 of the California Health and Safety Code, and authorizes the Hollister Fire Department to submit the compliance reporting for all state mandated local programs. In essence, it all came down because of the Ghost Ship fire, where certain inspections weren't being completed, and since there was such a great loss of life during that, Senate Bill 1205 was introduced and adopted in 2018. And what it says is all apartments, hotels, motels, and schools are to be inspected annually. And then your local fire agency is supposed to inspect them and take it back to your respective boards to let them know that we completed them or why we didn't complete them. So I'm here to tell you that we completed the 398 of all 398 for this year. So we did complete those throughout the county. So with that, staff recommends the city adopt a resolution authorizing the compliance reporting for the state mandated local programs for Senate Bill 1205 pursuant to section 131.46.4 of the Health and Safety Code relating to fire protection regarding certain occupancies, annual inspections.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, did we assess any cost recovery fees in relation to those inspections?
No, sir. And we haven't for the last 2 years due to COVID, but we are totally authorized to have cost recovery on these. And within the next year, we will be billing. And we did on the last 2 years of our notices, let them know that there is an annual inspection fee for these inspections, but due to COVID, we're not going to do it this year or last year. So we didn't do it for this year, but they know in the future that it's coming. So it's kind of eased them into it.
Thanks. So have these fees been in existence for a number of years or just 2 or?
No, there are local adopted inspection fees.
So why didn't we, because of COVID?
A lot of people were coming back and saying, I can't even pay the rent. I can't even get the people to pay rent. I'm having a hard time. So it was to help ease up on the owners of the buildings.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question along those lines. It's when you're testing or checking, especially the apartments, I assume you're checking smoke detectors, what you're really going through and making sure those are all working.
So we have a whole list that we go out there. We don't go and invade on people's privacy. We have a checkoff list, and that's something that we do mark off. And there are some people that will invite us in to come in and check it out, but we don't want to invade their personal space. So we leave it up to the homeowners, and we note it. Make sure you check every smoke detector to ensure that they work properly, and then we have them recheck the entire list for compliance.
So the property owner would reply saying he's verified or attesting to the fact that he or someone that works for the person, he or she, has tested the smoke detectors and verified their updated batteries are updated and so on. To go a step further, in our community, there's a lot of homes that are rented. Is there a way to get to those landlords to make sure that's happening too, or?
That part we don't do, but we do get a lot of code compliance complaints where we will notify code enforcement, or we'll just do a courtesy phone call. Hey, it's your job, it's law, you have to be in compliance. So usually a phone call takes care of that. But a lot of times, I mean, it's a double-edged sword because people get annoyed with it and they take it down and they don't want to have them up there. And then they get caught or something with not having it up there. So then the homeowner gets in trouble. So it goes both ways. They need to work collaboratively to make sure that they work properly.
And I agree, and that's the problem. It's really a simple fix. Matter of fact, last year, Mr. Perez and myself did a video to show you show the public how to change the batteries, how simple it is, and how critically important. This is the end of the year. Please, everyone, change the batteries on your smoke detectors. It's important. It will, and it can, and it will save your life. So maybe we can do some kind of announcement in the utility bills or something just to remind.
And what we have to do is we have to tell them to check them now because they're 10-year batteries now. So
The
you
new
can't
ones.
change the batteries,
The
yeah, the
new
newer ones.
But most of the old ones are not 10-year.
And we're
smoke
advising
detector.
to replace them because they're out of compliance.
Right, so thank you. Any other questions or comments? Do we have any speaker cards?
We have no speakers.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt resolution number 2021-220.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. We'll move now to
Thank
item F4.
Good evening, City Council. Eva Kelly, Associate Planner with the Development Services Department. This item and also the following two are our annual accountability reports for our CFDs. This item for Resolution 2021-221 is the annual accountability report for CFD 2, which is for police and fire services. And essentially the accountability report summarizes the CFD taxes that were collected for the fiscal year. And it's just a simple summary report for each of the CFDs.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Did you have a question? Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to F5.
Thank you. Similar to the last item, this is the annual accountability report for CFD 4, which is for public facilities like streets, sidewalks, parks, stormwater facilities maintenance. And this is the annual report.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll now move to item F6.
Thank you. The last one for the evening is the annual accountability report for CFD 5, which is the replacement CFD that funds the same police and fire services at a different rate than CFD 2.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Is there any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll now move to item
Thank you.
F7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. Abraham Prado, Development Services Department Planning Manager and currently Interim Director. September 21st, a couple months ago here at the City Council, we had a few members of the public come in and speak about concerns that they had in regards to the Maple Street and Chapel Road intersection. And some of the things that we heard were that there was line of sight issues, there was vehicles at a fast pace on that intersection, and that there was no stop signs on the northbound and southbound approaches to Chapel Road, amongst others. And so that night, City Council asked Police Chief Carlos Reynoso to please to take a look at that intersection and observe any type of issues that were going on. We've been in communication with Chief of Police Carlos Reynoso, and I know he also indicated Hollister Police have been out there on multiple occasions, and they did observe some issues, particularly on Maple Street. Currently, there is one stop sign eastbound, and one of the issues that was observed and that was provided to the traffic study analyst was that vehicles had to stop and actually had to drive a little bit forward towards the eastbound of the stop sign to see that there wasn't any traffic going northbound, southbound on Chapel Road before actually making the turn. So that was one of the things that Chief observed and provided that information for the traffic study. So the traffic study that was asked for preparation on this intersection actually is based on the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices standards. And there's various aspects or various types of analysis that actually indicate whether or not an intersection warrants stop signs. One of the ones that was included in this analysis was traffic volume. One of the criteria is that the major road and minor road are analyzed, in this case the major road being Chapel Road, and they take the highest volumes of vehicles that are traversing that road, the highest 8-hour volume. And so one of the things that we make sure of is that the counts are on a regular weekday, non-holiday, non-weekend. We want to make sure that current operations or regular operations of regular workday and school day is in effect. And so these counts were taken on Fridays, actually Tuesday, September 21st through Friday, September 24th. And the highest 8-hour average on Chapel Road was at 162 vehicles per hour. That was noted as part of the report that's attached to your packets. And the requirement for a warrant of a stop sign is a 300 vehicles per hour average. And on the minor road on which is considered to be Maple Street, the highest 8-hour average that was provided on the study was at 92 vehicles per hour, and the requirement for a stop sign is at 200. So again, both currently appear to be at lower than the requirement for stop signs to be warranted on Chapel Road. Essentially an always stop sign. Currently there's no east leg, but currently there's just the Maple Street stop sign. And so based on the study, there's other criteria. For example, they take into consideration collisions that have been reported in the last year and so forth. So even though at this time the study did not warrant stop signs, the recommendations of the traffic study were to, one, provide a speed cushion along the north leg of Chapel Road, as seen on attachment B of the study or on the actual last page of the report, with gaps to be provided within the speed cushion for larger vehicles such as for fire trucks. 2, in addition, it is recommended that 6 on-street parking spaces along the west side of Chapel Road, immediately to the north of the intersection, be removed in order to provide adequate sight distance for vehicles turning from Maple Street onto Chapel Road. And 3, it is also recommended that the landscape on the northwest corner of the intersection be trimmed back. My understanding is that the day after the city council meeting back in September, city staff went out there and trimmed the landscaping back. I was told because Chief Reynoso was actually out there the next day, and he called me and he contacted me and he said, "Hey, it's better because it's trimmed." But my understanding is that it looks like it's coming back. So the landscape has bushes and so forth. So we want to indicate that because we saw members of the public come in and request this analysis to be done, or for the city to look into this intersection, staff sent out a public notice in English and in Spanish to the area. Chapel Road and Maple Street intersection with the link to the traffic study, and staff contact information of one of the engineers and myself as well for information in English or in Spanish. Staff has reviewed the study and recommends that the City Council approve a resolution adopting the analysis and authorizing the installation of said traffic calming measures for the intersection of Chapel Road and Maple Street. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you. Councilmember Burns?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Prado,
Yes.
I understand that for the four-way or all-way stops, the counts didn't meet the minimum threshold. Does this council have the authority to disregard that and still direct staff to put those stops in? And if so, is there a consequence for that action?
Good question, Councilmember Tim. The recommendation from the traffic engineer indicated that if the council went ahead and put the stop signs, or if the stop signs were placed without the actual warrant based on the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices standards, is that unfortunately there appears to be a tendency to where during peak hours, it's fine, it's very much needed, but during non-peak hours, there appears to be a tendency where vehicles would kind of drive through the stop signs, maybe just do a slow stop and then just drive through, which creates more of a liability or more of a risk for collisions. And so that was the recommendation against the stop sign, even though it's not warranted.
Thanks, I understand that, but if we decide to move forward and put stop signs in, there'd be no consequence to that except for what you've just expressed?
Well,
let me back up.
I can explain that, because what happens is when the traffic study is done, if it's not warranted, if there's an accident, the lawyers, first thing they do is look at the studies, the reports, and if they find that a stop sign was put in to an intersection that was not warranted, we would be liable.
Yeah,
for
correct.
them. That's why it's
Mayor, if you don't-
it's very frustrating, but it's at the same time, and there's a lot of case studies that actually show that sometimes putting a stop sign in could be even worse than not having one. I do like the other recommendations. Go ahead,
Yeah.
sir. Do you have more questions?
One more. So
Sure.
in lieu of a stop sign, would there be anything that prevents the city from putting in yield signs?
A yield sign. No, we can consult with the traffic consultant because we understand that when it comes to traffic calming measures, we want to make sure that it meets the requirements for the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control, and if they feel that it's fine, there shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, Mayor, can I back up real quick?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to your question is yes, you can override it and as council put the stop signs in. But as the partners of your risk pool, they would really want you to follow the traffic engineer because like the mayor said, if you do, if there is an accident there, then we're going to be liable and so is your risk pool. And as your representative on that board, I would really ask that you follow the traffic engineer, but we will definitely look at if we can put a yield sign or some kind of other signs there.
Thank you.
Councilor Perez, you had a comment?
Where would you put a yield sign? It's a stop sign.
On the other direction, just to slow people down.
To yield to that doesn't make sense to me. But what I would say is on the shrubberies that we have to keep trimming, why don't we just put some ground cover there?
That is a good suggestion.
I mean, let's eliminate some of these problems instead of just creating more maintenance problems every year.
Remove the bushes and have more of a ground cover. If that's that can be. That's a good suggestion.
Would that be something that might be possible to keep in mind when we're thinking about the future projects?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This is a frustrating one because I can remember when this development was getting approved, the homeowners in that neighborhood came to us and said, this is going to be a problem. You're putting parking out there, you're doing all these things, it's going to be a major problem. And everything they said is exactly what happened. I remember those conversations very, very well. And when you look at these studies and you look at the sight line from the stop sign 8 foot back, you see the problem very clear. And this is going back to some of our conversations, but we should never allow this to ever happen, as you're kind of pointing out in these approvals. That setback from the road should be much further back. In this case, it was a matter of let's cram as much as we can in, and then let's allow residents to park outside on the city streets rather than within, because we don't want to lose any space. This was all a recipe for disaster we're facing. I agree, removing the ground cover. I believe this is a homeowner association, though, and is it
Correct.
not their responsibility to make sure they're being trimmed and maintained correctly?
That is correct. However, the bushes are outside along the sound wall, so we'll confirm whether or not they're actually part of the HOA.
Because I think, as I remember, this project was designed to allow residents to park outside all the way around this project, and there's gate access to them. So I believe it might be. So something we need to look at, make it clear, remove that, change the ground covering, and please, let's make sure, again, future projects, we have that setback 20, 30 feet. That line of sight is clear on both sides. Never allow another project to allow their residents to park on the city side of the streets. They can't find it inside, it shouldn't go, because this is horrible. And I'm glad to see the designs and the speed cushions, the lines leading to speed cushions. I think that is going to help, but it's too bad we got there. Did you have another question?
I do, Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So I would presume that this is all outlined in the CUP that led to the allowable or the allowance of the subdivision being built?
In regards to the parking and so forth?
Correct, and the maintenance of the,
The maintenance of it, yeah,
ground?
that's part of the Communities
Right.
Facilities District, Councilmember Tim, yes,
Okay.
that, yes.
And then I guess my only other question would be, clearly this is an example of how things haven't been done to our preferred standard. How do we communicate this directly to our planning commission so that they, when they see these developments coming forward, implement the council's request as it relates to that and the city standards?
Absolutely, that's great, Councilmember Tim, and that's one of the things that we will do more of an outreach with. We meet generally every month at a minimum with the Development Review Committee, which is police chief and Captain Rosie are usually a part of that meeting. We have the fire department staff and we have the engineering department staff, and so all of those things are things that we are taking into consideration every time to make sure that new developments that are being proposed are not going to have those same issues, and make sure that we have conditions of approval and actually designs on the actual plans to make sure that those things do not occur.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Resendez.
Thank you, sir. To Councilmember Burns' point, couldn't we just include it in the general plan?
That's a goal and policy that we can definitely implement as well.
So I would suggest that, and then we don't have to, it's taken care of, right?
Yeah, that is one thing that we can include in the goal and policy of the general plan. Absolutely, we can.
Thank you.
We can do that.
And I thank you for that recommendation. I can remember this conversation was, it wouldn't be fair to the developer to add this extra burden and lose more property, which was, again, frustrating. I think we can do this right. And I think the problem is the planning commission has to go with what's on the books, and on the books allows it. So we have to make that change through the council so the planning commission understands that, correct? But I don't want to go too far. We're going to be straying off of this.
Yeah.
And
That's
I know
okay.
we don't want to go there. So
no, it's all right. Yeah.
Another conversation, but let's agendize that.
Absolutely.
Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is also regarding a traffic calming study along with the warrant analysis, but this one's on Chapel Road and Alvarado Street, next to the San Andreas School and McCarthy Park. And in October 2021, the city authorized an always stop sign there at that intersection. Currently, as you know, there is a northbound and southbound stop sign on Chapel Road. In this case, there is no stop signs on Alvarado, eastbound, westbound. And so some of the school administrators, members of the public, including parents of students and residents of the area, have expressed multiple concerns of the intersection, such as line of sight issues, vehicles traveling at a fast pace, and also no stop signs along the east and westbound of Alvarado Street at that intersection. And again, we had the traffic study conduct the analysis through the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and the study indicated that there was a line of sight issue at this intersection, primarily along the westbound of Alvarado Street. On-site parking was an issue, and also on the southwest corner, there's an existing development that was done back in the 90s, and that sound wall also has created some line of sight issues. And because of that, and because in this particular case, the removal of parking is not recommended because it is a school and it is a park, and therefore, based on the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the recommendation is to allow for the four-way stop sign. And in addition to that, install a striped crosswalk on the east leg of the intersection. Currently, there's a crosswalk on the other three crossings, but not on the east leg. So the recommendation would be to include it there. And then also, drivers should be notified at least 30 days in advance of the change in intersection control, such as by placing the stop signs in advance, but covered with a sign that indicates future stop sign for at least a period of 30 days. And so with that, staff has reviewed the study and recommends that the City Council approve a resolution adopting the analysis and authorizing the installation of the all-way stop sign control at the intersection of Alvarado and Chapel Street, and along with the implementation of the recommendations and the analysis. Thank you. Are there any
Thank you,
questions for
sir.
staff?
Do you have any questions from council? I do have a comment, and this one between this one, the previous had me scratching my head about
Sure.
why did one get the exception, and I read through it several times
Yeah.
to try to really thoroughly understand this. So my question is, making the exception because of the line of sight, is that a valid reason? And if so, why could we not have done that on the previous one?
Correct, and that was one thing that the interim city engineer and I were discussing. And so in this particular case, the school, because it's a school, because it's a park, the removal of the on-street parking is now recommended. Also, buses can park there, and so that way it's now recommended to be removed. And then in this particular study as well, the actual sound wall, not the bushes, but the actual sound wall of the development to the southeast. Southeast, it's the one across the street from Lucky's. It's that small lot development that was done
Right.
back in the 80s. That actual sound wall creates a hazard for line of sight.
Okay, so but because of the school and the park, that gives us
You
the
got it.
extra reason.
You got it.
Verify. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution 2021-2025.
Is there a second?
Sorry, 225.
All right. Is there a second?
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item F9.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This agenda item is in regard to the Buena Vista Traffic Calming Project. This resolution will approve the proposal provided by Kimley Horn for the interim improvements of the Buena Vista Traffic Calming Project. Staff recommends that City Council adopt the resolution approving Kimley Horn's proposal and authorize staff to issue a task order for Kimley Horn to proceed with preparing the plans and the construction contract for the project. Any questions?
Thank you.
Comments?
Vice Mayor Resendez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just after our last discussion on this item at the council, we made some recommendations, and I'm just wondering specifically, like, what, if anything, was changed. In particular, I'm wondering about the crosswalks on West Side and possibly stop signs.
An email was sent out today. Did everybody get that with the
I'm
some
not
of the
familiar with
recommended
this.
changes?
Okay, well, so those will be added in there.
They're in the proposal.
Oh, okay. So those have been added to the proposal, those recommendations.
Perfect, thanks.
Mhm. Okay, also the lighting
I
study?
did
you
see
guys-
that, yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions, other questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. I really do appreciate the work that was done here. I looked at these over and over to make sure it was covered. I hope I didn't miss anything, but thank you so much. I think it's going to make a major difference for Buena Vista and hopefully slow down the traffic. Well, I know it will slow down the traffic. So thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt 2021-226.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carries 4-0. We'll move now to item F10.
Good evening, Mayor Velasquez and City Council. Tina Garza, Recreation Services Manager. The item before you, resolution number 2021-227, is a resolution for the City Council of the City of Hollister approving the temporary street closure of 7th Street in front of the Garden Shop for a pet photography event on December 11th, 2021, between the hours of 8:30 and 3 p.m. My next step here is to refer any questions or comments to Animal Control Supervisor Alyssa Batista, and she's available on Zoom. Yes.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Well, thank you for being on Zoom.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move to item F11.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is for the airport to change their airport advisory commission to change their attendance policy with regards to attendance and then any resignations. And this is the same thing that we're working with other commissions. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Vice Mayor Resendez?
Thank you. Quick question. I thought we talked about reducing the membership of the airport commission, and I'm wondering if that ever happened or not.
Yeah, I
because
believe-
we had a hard time getting quorum.
Correct. I believe that happened at a previous policy or
Wonderful. Thank
bylaw
you.
change.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember?
So who brought this up for amendment?
But this, what happened with the planning commission where somebody stepped down, but we weren't able to get a hold of them. This allows us to start that recruitment process that much faster.
So who was that?
This was brought to the airport advisory commission, and then it was approved to bring it to council.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt resolution number 2021-228.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We will now move to item F12.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Renee Perales, Administrative Services. Tonight before you is Resolution 2021-229, approving a supplemental appropriation for Kimley Horn to update the plans and specifications for the West Gateway project. First, I need to point out an error in my report and appropriation. The proposal that we received from Kimley Horn is for Phase 1 and 2 of the project, and I incorrectly included the amount for Phase 2. Tonight, I am only asking for the appropriation for Phase 1 in the amount of $408,076. The West Gateway project went out to bid in 2019. The bids we received were significantly over the estimate. Those bids were rejected, and staff was directed by council to look at redesigning the project to reduce costs. Kimley Horn has design ideas that will that should reduce construction costs to the project by about $1 million. There's no change in the project description that we brought forth to council for approval for the grant application. We received word from the state that we were successful in getting the $3 million grant from CDBG, and that our project is next to be funded. Staff recommends that the City Council approve Resolution 2021-229, approving the supplemental appropriation for Kimley Horn to update those plans and specifications for the West Gateway project.
And that, again, the correct number is?
It's $408,076.
Is there any questions from council? I do have a question, a comment. I think, I don't know, this is a conversation we've had for many years and about the cost and why we're doing a roundabout in this area and so on. I don't know if the council is up to speed on the whole project. There was really not a lot of detail for it, but I'm curious on what the ideas would be. And one of the things I was wondering is, if we're going to still go after this, is there a possibility that the firm can look at adding some sort of attachment onto the bridge for pedestrian crossing? Would that be something that could possibly be added to this scope and maybe reduce something else so we can get that crossing, pedestrian crossing, is really a critical part of what we're trying to get to with our park down the road. And I know other communities have done that. They've kind of extended or widened the bridge with pedestrian crossing. So I'm just curious if that's something that could be talked about. Is that something we need to come back and to discuss and kind of get an idea of what, as a council, we really want out of this, rather than before, which is we're going to do a roundabout, we're going to fix this all up, and $3.5 million or $1 million, and it came out to $3.5 million, and the question was asked, why are we doing this? So would that something that'd be possible, or a discussion maybe come back to have that vision, common goal?
The one thing I'm pretty positive about, but I'll double check for you, is that I don't think we can modify the project description. I think we have to build the project that we submitted to the state in our application. It's not to say that we can't change the project if we want to pay for, if the city wants to fund anything outside of that project, but we can't, I don't think we can change that project, but I'll be happy to contact the state to get final word on that.
And then also, Mayor, too, I mean, the county keeps looking to partner with different items and with infrastructure funding coming in the near future. That's something that I can really push with them because it would benefit them also.
Oh, I agree. I think we could all get on board on this, but I think that conversation, that vision needs to be out there so we can say, well, that does make a lot more sense, and it does help as far as beautifying the area because we added that park trail. You can loop around and cross the bridge there. That's a big component of this whole piece that would get more activity in that area and make more sense of the project. Before it was just, we're going to put a roundabout out there. Well, why? Why is this, how's this tying together? I mean, I understand, but maybe we can get that conversation, maybe if we have to do a different meeting, but if you can get those answers and even see if that's a possibility through the engineers to do something like that, I think it'd be an important conversation to have. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess my question to the city manager is, so recognizing this is an item before us this evening, is this time sensitive? Or is this something we could hit pause on until we got some follow-up information? Because I appreciate the fact that it's only phase 1, and maybe that could become phase 3, 4, or 5. But you know, to spend $409,000, if it's not time sensitive and we got those answers first, it may be more prudent. Thank you.
I'll have Renee answer that, but it is time sensitive.
It's pretty time sensitive, and once we receive the contract from the state, we have to like pretty much hit the ground running.
Yeah, they're usually supposed to be pretty much shovel-ready projects, so that's why we got awarded.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Resendez and then Chris.
Thank you. I do think that the point the mayor brought up was a valid one, and it should be prioritized. So obviously, like, it's a grant. I see where you're coming from too, and I understand that you probably won't be able to change it. So my recommendation would be to, if the council agrees, is to approve it tonight, and then to prioritize bringing back, if we can, on the city side, do something to ensure that there's a safe passage to the park. We might as well do them both at the same time. So that would be my recommendation. But I am anxious to get this passed tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Perez.
I can agree with that too. My only question is, when this does come back, or can you email me what this is going to look like? Because I can't seem to find it here, and if it is here, I just.
Well, there's no plans and specs that have been created for this project yet. That's what Kimley Horn's going to do. They're going to well, I mean, there's an old set, but Kimley Horn's going to prepare plans, and once we go out to bid, they will be brought back to the city council for approval.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Is there a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution 2021-229.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Can I ask a question? Was there an amendment to that resolution with the money amount?
To 408,076.
We should probably clarify that.
Do we need
408,076. I can give you one.
Okay, so it'll be adopted as amended with that money change?
Yes.
Okay.
And then can we also add the stipulation of the mayor's request to bring back an item in the near future to see if we might as well get a safe passage for the park?
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Councilmember Burns?
Of course.
Thank you.
We have that. We'll go ahead and move to item F13.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of Hollister held a special municipal election on November 2nd, 2021, which was to fill a vacancy for Councilmember District 3. The city received the election results from the San Benito County Elections Department, which certifies that Dolores Morales was elected to fulfill the vacancy with a term ending December 2022. Per Elections Code 10263, City Council must adopt a resolution reciting the facts of the election. So this resolution before you, 2021-230, will certify those election results.
Thank you. Any questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will,
Thank you.
well, we're at 8:30. Why don't we take our 5-minute break? And be back 5 minutes, everyone.
to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to COVID-19 public health emergency related to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year prior to the emergency. And finally, it could make necessary investments into water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So we have come up with a plan to spend those funds with council okay, that we would spend $1 million on small business priorities. So to help businesses that have suffered economic loss, spend $2 million to help downtown revitalization and restaurant incentives, $100,000 towards tourism, essential employee premium pay for staff for $480,000, COVID-19 and building protection of around $165,000, and then revenue replacement, or basically back to the general fund, of $6 million, where we can spend that money how we feel appropriately through the budget process. I ask the council if they have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. City manager, when you talk about the money earmarked for essential employees or hazard pay, more appropriately, I believe.
Correct.
And you mentioned a sum slightly under $500,000, correct?
Correct.
And so, have you come up with any more specifics, or is it too early for that? And the reason I ask is, I certainly believe that our staff have worked exceptionally well during a very difficult time in history, and I support it, but I don't know that I'm going to support it across the board, and so I'd like to know more about that before those monies are distributed, but I would like to talk, and maybe this is premature to that, and I recognize that, but I'd like to know more if there is more to know.
Correct. It starts on page 349 of the packet. What it would be is that for any full-time employees hired before January 1st, 2021, will receive a lump sum payment of $2,400. Full-time employees hired on or after January 1st would receive $1,200. Part-time employees hired before January 1st would receive $1,200, and ones hired on or after January 1st would receive $600.
Thank you, and I think you've crossed the board, and I appreciate that. I'm not sure I can support that, however, because it's my understanding that several city staff were actually teleworking from home, working from home, or working from in a protected environment, unlike police, fire, public works staff. And so I really think that I don't want this to simply be an employment bonus. I'd like to see it really be distributed for those people that were at risk, on harm's way. I just don't see that being the case for anybody that may have been home during the pandemic or continue to be at home. And so I support conceptually. I just would like to maybe look at that element to a more refined degree, I guess I would say.
I hear what you're saying. The issue with that is payroll did not keep track of who was home, who wasn't. We did do a different occasion with the yard. We went at the heat of the moment. We were doing an A shift and a B shift, so that in case one group got COVID and spread it to everybody, we had a second team. So we really never kept track of that. So that would be the issue, and really the staff that was sent home, we have office staff of approximately 25, and I would say maybe a half or 2/3 of those individuals were the ones allowed to telecommute at home, but they did still have to come in occasionally to pick up their things and deal with public. My feeling with this was no one life was worth another. That's why it's not done by a percentage of pay. My life is worth no more than somebody else's life. So that was the main issue. And also, I mean, the employees' families suffered through this whole endeavor too. So that's, we're just more looking at more of a simpler method, just because we didn't have the specifics to who was here and who was not.
Thank you. I'm going to support this, but I would like to have further conversation as it relates specifically to this particular item.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
If I can, go ahead, Vice Mayor Sanders.
Thank you. I have the same concerns as Councilmember Burns does. What it says that it's for an essential worker, and again, our staff is so important to us. We're not undermining their work, right? But it says it's for an essential worker and premium pay. Like, what defines or constitutes an essential worker? For me, it's very clear that our police and our fire and possibly our public works department are essential workers. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I feel like I was an essential worker, and I feel like my job was heavily impacted by the pandemic. When I got hired back for the beginning of the year, I couldn't get a pay raise because we had to hire more staff. And I had, my family was heavily impacted. I had a more workload. We all do. We still do to this day. And that, to me, it's part of my job. It's part of my duty to the children, right? We are essential workers. We had to come here. We had to have several meetings. And that's what we signed up for. It's part of our job as council members. It's essential worker, right? So I understand, and I this is a hard one for me too, because I do feel that clearly the police department, the fire department, public works, it should be defined as essential worker. I see what you're saying about the other workers, and if that's the case, I'm really on the fence about it. I don't know what I would do, to be honest with you, but we can make it clear by saying certain departments. I don't know, but ultimately I'm going to go with your recommendation, and I would really like to get this resolved tonight because I think it's important. The holidays are coming up, and I'd like to take care of our staff.
Yeah, and to go back, we define our employees, all our employees as essential workers, because if there is a disaster, which COVID was one, but if there's an earthquake, we're calling in all our employees onto those projects, no matter what. They serve a role in our emergency response. So that, like I say, everybody serves something in this throughout the process. Like I said, early on, yes, police and fire were the ones in the trenches, but then public works showed up. They were the ones going out delivering food to seniors. Our rec staff was out there, and anybody that was available that we might have kept at home, we had them delivering food to different seniors.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
And that's a great point, and I don't want to undermine what they did. And I want to be fiscally responsible. It's not anything personal towards our employees. Again, I'm going to go with the recommendation from the staff, most likely. I just want to be fiscally responsible, and I want to ensure that this money is used in a way that's going to sustain more revenue and what is exactly for what it's supposed to be used for. So that's my position.
Well, I would say that was part of the intent, is to bring this with the approval that employees would be paid on December 22nd, which is right before our Christmas or holiday break, which I would hope that they would spend it in our local stores to help to turn over that economy, especially with the businesses that are hurting in this town.
Great point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do have a comment too, and I do agree with both Mr. Burns and Mr. Resendez. And I remember this time very well when the crisis hit us, and I remember the work you did and the conversations we had about what are we going to do to protect the staff, the citizens, and all these things that were happening. And I can remember my biggest fear at the time was we have police, we have fire going out, and all we have for them is a N95 mask. And I remember our concern. And I remember you going really to great lengths to make sure that every employee was still going to get a paycheck. No matter what, we were figuring out how are we going to do this financially, but let's make sure they're going to get a paycheck, whether they're here or they're home. I think the reality is those that really were out there were the police and fire. And not that the rest of the staff did not do some important things, but we have citizens throughout this community that were just literally laid off, and nobody covered them whatsoever. And I'm sure it'd be frustrating for them to say, okay, well, they're getting the money and now they're taking amongst themselves. And I can understand, again, our staff did do more, but I think almost everyone would agree that when it came down to it, at the very beginning, when we didn't know the consequences of this whole thing, police and fire were right there. They were right there, and they were, again, as I said, we were all concerned because that was our fear. What if they end up getting this, because they're dealing with people directly. How do we make sure there's a better balance maybe on this? A higher percentage towards those that were dealing with the emergency services, that were there in the faces of people helping them? Because otherwise it does come back to, what about all those other citizens that didn't even get a check? And thankfully, those funds are coming back and offsetting some of our costs, offsetting the cost of a lot of businesses that struggled. I know many businesses in the town, including myself, struggled. Thank God the government did come through and help keep us from all going bankrupt. But now that the dollars are back, we need to really invest it to get some returns on this. And again, I don't mind something, but I think there has to be a better percentage breakdown on this, and a clearer picture to it would be helpful.
Yeah, what I would add to, and how I kind of thought about this, this is under 5% of the funds that we're receiving, and our employees are our biggest assets, and so that's what I'm trying to invest in. With the CalPERA conference that I just talked about, they're calling this the Great Resignation, and the big thing that they pushed is keep the employees that you have right now, because that's your best resource, and that's what we're kind of looking at. We had all employees did something through this COVID or continue. Like I say, the rec is still putting out services that, they had. We closed down the streets. You have the public works employees when we opened up the parklets the night before. It was raining cats and dogs, and they were out here till midnight, 2 o'clock at night, where they could easily have gotten sick or compromised themselves at a time when COVID was still, we're kind of coming out of it. But like I say, we've had a really great dedicated staff.
And I remember that.
So that, that's, the more I kept going through it and thought of it, because I heard what you said, Councilmember Burns, during when you talked about this, and like I said, there was no great solution, but I felt every employee deserves something for all the really tough work they've gone through.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns, do you have a comment?
I do. Mayor, I agree with what's been said, but I also I don't see this as a holiday or a Christmas bonus.
Right.
This is hazard pay for a risk that a certain group of employees took. And I think the mayor made a great point. There were employees that were afforded the comfort and the safety of working from home, and that is not a hazard per se. And for me, frankly, I don't think the numbers proposed are high enough, actually. If you look at it, we're going into about the 21st month of COVID and the pandemic, and if you divide that number into your $2,400, that's a little over $100 a month. Now, it's more of a statement. I agree 100% with what you've said in that regard, and our employees are our most valuable resource, and we have to invest in them. But at the same time, there were a lot of people that lost their job, and in some cases, the state of California had an epic failure in unemployment that is well recognized. And there were a lot of other hardships that were created as a direct result of this that our employees did not face financially. They did not have that risk. They have guarantees of a paycheck and of benefits. And the city takes exceptionally good care of them in regards to benefits, in my opinion. And so I actually would like to see the amount increased proportionately to those people that actually physically had their boots on the ground, whether it be police, fire, public works, water, sewer people. And I do think that we could do some research and figure out what that looks like. And I don't care if this hits on December 22nd or if it hits in March. I think a more well thought out plan would be appropriate. And I don't mind if you give everybody $600 as a token of our gesture of our appreciation, but I don't want to guise this under a bonus. It's essential employees that were at risk and hazard. And I think everybody, I don't care what your job is, whether you're a school teacher, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a service provider, an exterminator. I think we're all essential because we all relate and rely on our work to provide the resources necessary to sustain our lives. So I don't want to even go into the essential employee piece of this. I think it's hazard pay, and I think it should be looked at more closely before we move forward. And I actually, as I think, and we've talked about this a little bit, I'd actually like to have that piece pulled out and look at a bigger dollar number for the right group of people versus simply just moving forward to approve it today to hit the December 22nd hope for distribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perez.
I have been waiting for this for a long time, Brett. I've asked you months ago about this to give us some type of direction of where you wanted to allocate this money. I too want to compensate our employees for the hazard pay. I think it needs to go. We need to put a lot more thought into it. One thing I wanted to ask, so the numbers that you have here, where is it? Small business priorities, $1 million. Downtown revitalization, restaurant incentive tourism, and then tourism. You have 100, are these numbers locked in here? Because
No, they're
because
not
you
locked
have
in.
100,000 here for tourism, and then if you scroll down some more, there's $165,874 for COVID-19 and building protection. It's like, so for hand sanitizers and masks, you put out 165, but yet to promote our tourism, you're only going to put out 100,000. That doesn't make sense to me. This money, to me, from my understanding, and you know what, I'm just a layman, but it's to revitalize, and that's and to me, that's bringing people in to spend money here. That's like tourism and getting us to spend money here. I think those numbers are off, and like I say, I just might be a little bit upset because I was asking you for these numbers a long time ago, and you kept pushing me off. And
Well, I mean,
and so to get these, I'd love to get our city employees this compensation by Christmas. That'd be great, but it's not a Christmas bonus. This is pay that was earned.
correct. Yeah. No, I mean, I would say downtown revitalization and restaurant incentives, it can be used to bring new businesses downtown. If it requires more tourism, then we can move that around. The revenue replacement all goes to the general fund that council then can, by budget and budget adjustments, move that money around how we want to. And that's what I would bring back. It's just that's based on the calculations provided with the ARPA funding, we're able to put all that money back into the general fund for revenue loss. But we can use however we want. This was just a proposed budget.
I'll go ahead, Vice Mayor Resendez.
Thank you. One thing that I do want to talk about that's related to this, and I'm going to address this in public. I'm sorry, Brett. I know that you guys got hundreds of emails spammed to myself, to my email account, trying to lobby the efforts of getting this money allocated for the employees. I had a conversation with people that were sending those emails, and it's my understanding, and I'd like this to be investigated and find out if it's true or not, that a city employee from a certain department, well, I don't know how to address this without being specific. A city employee got data from the recreation department and then had the parents from the programs that we're funding send these emails to us, hundreds and hundreds of emails, spam us, without them even knowing what they were doing. So what does that do? It took up hours of my time to just delete them, and I couldn't even get through the emails. That's highly unethical. I don't know if it's 100% true, but it needs to be investigated, because if that did happen, then those people that work for us should be held accountable, because you cannot use public funds to lobby or advocate to get yourself a pay raise.
Correct.
It's highly unethical. So if it's true, and if we can't get to the bottom of it, then we need to hire somebody that can get to the bottom of it and find out who, if that's true, essentially. So I forgot I wanted to bring up that point, so I'm glad that I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any comments for us? I think we all have similar feelings on this, and I heard a good suggestion from Councilmember Burns, maybe increase that number, and I would say maybe increase it by 200, maybe 680, and maybe 70% going towards the police, fire, and public works, that the people that were really, as Mr. Burns said, the boots on the ground that were really going out there. And then maybe some of those dollars, those that volunteered or spent time helping serve food, would be on that list to make it a little more fair. And again, we have residents all over this community that didn't get this luxury at all. And they struggled, and they still are struggling just to catch up. So if we're gonna do this, I wanna make sure we're somewhat fair. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about something like that, but I think it's important to have that conversation so we can move forward. Mr. Burns?
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding that maybe 6 or 8 months ago, we decided not to fund EDC, correct?
Correct.
And so we're no longer spending that $100,000 or so?
Correct.
So that would have then just gone back to the general fund?
Correct.
So I like what the mayor said. I actually would like to just maybe pull out $1 million, set it aside till we can figure this out.
Yeah.
Because we're certainly, once we establish that, whatever is the excess, we can push back into the other things. But I also like what Councilmember Perez said about, we're gonna buy masks and sanitizers for this, but I think it's a much bigger conversation, Councilmember Perez and council members, to really look at that now that we're not underwriting a portion of EDC. And so I think we don't have to pull the trigger on all of this tonight unless
Correct.
there's any of it time sensitive. And
Yeah, the only thing that was going to be time sensitive was for the employees.
Right,
Yeah,
and
that was
again-
the thing was, the other ones we would work on the programs
right
to bring forward.
And so maybe this could, again, I just don't want this to be perceived as a bonus. I want it to be clearly recognized as a hazard pay because they were exposed to pandemic risks that nobody's ever faced in our lifetimes. And so I'd rather just look at this in a more thoughtful way, and maybe I also look forward to in the near future we're going to have a 5th council member, and I would like to hear what she has to say as well. And so I think this should be a collaborative effort, and I'd rather not rush to judgment knowing that we're in December already. And so
No problem.
maybe the wise thing to do is just pull it from the agenda and bring it back, or schedule it for a work session where we can really get into the weeds a little bit more.
That's fine.
We could bring it back to a date certain of
Correct.
the January,
18th?
is it 18th? Maybe?
Yeah, I believe so. Can't see.
And maybe we can look
That's
at
not up
some of
there.
those different recommendations. Is that-
Or would you want a, I'm just thinking by the time we get to the 18th, it's going to be another long agenda, but we can do that also. We can still bring it on there.
Well, I've also seen where we've piggybacked things on special meetings, and maybe we just add this to an agenda for a future special meeting, because we're going to be talking on a Saturday about the redrawing of the districts.
Yeah,
And so maybe we could just piggyback with this in that.
Then what I would recommend is that we withdraw
Withdraw
the item, and then we'll put it on with the understanding that we'll get it on in January.
That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Second that.
questions, comments? Mr. Perez? No. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Dolores Morales.
Good evening, honorable council members. This item obviously has had a lot of controversy throughout various jurisdictions when they provide money or any type of relief to the community. And it has been one of the items that a lot of different jurisdictions take input from various communities in order to make decisions. So my recommendation is that you consider doing something very similar. And also look at what infrastructure priorities the city has in terms of liability to the city and just to various communities and many of our stakeholders. I wanted to also comment that our employees are very important. Other jurisdictions have provided $2,500 for this, and many jurisdictions have not evaluated the level of contributions in terms of what they've done, because it is very difficult. I do know that many of the departments in the city of Hollister are severely understaffed, and many employees have to do various jobs. Some departments are understaffed by 40%. So in theory, if you look at it from a cost-benefit analysis, you have one employee who's doing the job of multiple people. And especially through COVID, they took on those additional roles without additional compensation and exposed the families to a lot of different dangers. So I'd just like to consider all the various factors as you're making this decision. And thank you for taking this into consideration and postponing it for another time. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. So is there any other questions? Is there a motion to withdraw?
So moved.
There's a motion to withdraw. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.
We will now move to item F15. Wow, look at us. We're making progress.
Don't jinx us.
Oops. I take that back. We're behind schedule, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. Abraham Prado, Development Services Department Planning Manager and Interim Director. This item before you is a request to approve a final map and subdivision improvement agreement for the Clearest Park subdivision. Clearest Park consists of approximately 208 acres located approximately a half a mile to the north of the intersection between San Felipe and Fallon Road to the west. And the map of Clearest Park is located on Exhibit C of your packets. On January 24, 2019, the City of Hollister Planning Commission approved the tentative map for Clearest Park. Clearest Park has a general plan use designation of industrial and a zoning designation of industrial business park and also airport support. The Clearest Park is actually adjacent to the Hollister Municipal Airport. The approximately 208 acre site would be subdivided into 34 lots, and future uses of any of these 34 lots within Clearest Park would have to be consistent to the industrial land use designation of the general plan and also to the industrial business park zoning designation, as well as the airport support zoning designation. It's not that they have to be consistent to both, it's just that part of the 208 acres is within the airport support district, which is closer to the airport, and the rest of it is in the industrial business park. So that is what our current general plan has it for, and our future general plan has been contemplated for as well. Any future development on any of these 34 parcels would individually have to go through the planning process through a submittal of application of at minimum a set and architectural application, where we will process it through the planning process and also evaluate environmental to it as well. Back in the early 2000s, when this property was actually annexed from the county into the city of Hollister, a full environmental impact report was conducted. And so now that the property was subdivided back in 2019, we did not have to do a whole new environmental document, but an addendum to the environmental, pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. And so at this point, the property owner is requesting, since they got approval back in 2019, they are now requesting a final map and subdivision improvement agreement of the property. So we're here before you to indicate to you that the subdivision improvement agreement has been reviewed and determined to be in substantial conformance with the approved tentative map. The want to bring to your attention page 1 of the subdivision improvement agreement, and it indicates that it is made and entered on this first day of November 2021. Just kind of tells you that we've been working on this for some weeks now, and that should just be changed to the 6th day of December 2021, pending on the council's approval of this item this evening. Do want to say that the applicant property owner, Mr. Nguyen, and Joseph Nguyen, Mr. John Nguyen and Mr. Joseph Nguyen are here tonight in the audience as well to address any questions, as well as staff is happy to address any questions at this time as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Prado, I recognize this is industrial property, and most of my interests rest with residential. Having said that, it seems to me in the past, one of the challenges we've faced as a city as we've continued to grow was the tentative map being approved and then properties being land banked for an indefinite period. Can you speak to my concern, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Councilmember Tim, thank you for that. So on the tentative maps that the city approves has, as previously discussed, as you brought it up, Councilmember Tim, have a 2-year approval period, and then they have the option of an additional 1 year of an extension. And so as mentioned here, it was approved in January of 2019, and they actually got an extension in January of 2021, so this year. And so it would expire, this tentative map would expire in January of 2022, which is coming up. The requirement of a final map and subdivision improvement agreement has to be conducted prior to that January 2022 date.
Thank you. So that, I guess as a layperson, that would mean to me that we're not going to see any future 20-year development projects?
That's correct. The subdivision improvement agreement itself actually has a timeline of primary improvements, secondary improvements, and off-street, off-site improvements, essentially along San Felipe Road. And all of those have a timeline of by when they have to be completed. My understanding right off the bat is that the primary improvements are going to be the improvements that are going to be made from San Felipe Road all the way to the interior of the project element, of the subdivision improvement agreement, all the way to the airport, essentially, not connecting to the airport, but the interior roads, and that has a requirement of, I believe, within a year. And so just right off the bat, the improvements include a roundabout at the site's main entrance that has to be improved, along with roads that go all the way to the interior of the subdivision. And so that has a certain time limit for, and the subdivision improvement agreement essentially is to guarantee that those improvements are going to be made at a certain time.
Thanks. And those will all be at the developer's expense?
That is correct. So the what occurs is that for this subdivision improvement agreement, we work with the developer's engineer. The developer's engineer provides an engineer's estimate of what all of those costs are going to be. And so the estimate was at about 16 million. And so in order for us to make sure that those improvements are going to be made, our requirements are to bond for labor and materials at 100%, and also to bond at for the performance at 100%. And so all of that is laid out within the subdivision improvement agreement.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I got a couple questions. Can you speak, so I'm just trying to get a picture of the property where it's at.
Sure.
Is this like right next to the airport?
It is, right
So
next.
is this are they gonna like try using any of the, what's the proper term, through the fence?
Through the fence, it has the ability, the properties that face the airport have that ability, but we have not heard of a business that wanting to use it yet out of that deal.
And that applies to both sides of the airport?
Correct. All the way around.
All the way around, okay. Can you speak to, or do we have any potential companies that are wanting to come in and to speak about potential numbers of employees for our local residents?
That's a good question. So we did, as I mentioned earlier, we did do an environmental impact report when this got subdivided, or when this got annexed back a few years back, and then we did an addendum to that environmental impact report. So essentially, the jobs that would be created would be industrial jobs. Residential is not allowed in this particular zoning district, with the exception of caretaker jobs. If there is an industry that comes in and they want to have a caretaker, we would have to take it through the process, and they would have to indicate to us how is it going to be served and so forth. But just that is not single family, multifamily is not allowed. There is a potential for transitional housing to be allowed if it goes through the process itself, and that's just a zoning code allowance. But what we've been discussing with the developer who's here, the owner of the property, Mr. Nguyen, and Mr. Joseph and Mr. John Wynn, they have indicated that they've been working with potential developers of industrial jobs, and we are currently working with one applicant on this particular site. The applicant is Duke Realty, and they are interested in the potential of doing a industrial job, an industrial building on this one of these parcels. But that is, we would be processing them through a separate application, through a site and architectural review, to make sure that we review the ins and outs, ingress, egress, building height, building size. It is within the airport safety zones, so the Airport Land Use Commission would have to take a look at that and make sure that it meets the airport height of the building. Lighting is not going to be obstructing the pilots. All of that is taken into consideration. So we'll be making sure that that's taken care of.
Yeah, and Councilmember Perez, the other facility that's proposed is the John Wynn's smart glass facility also.
That's right.
Those are only two things that we know of right now.
The other thing, so I don't know if this question's even pertains to this whole thing, but are these like union jobs compared to, because they're near the airport, are they designed to be more for unions than whether they're just farther out of that sphere?
Councilmember Perez, you mean the jobs that would be created as part of industrial development that occurs within these 208 acres?
Yes, to build these, yeah.
So the planning department, the development services department, we process the land use of the actual companies that come in or the buildings that come in. We look at health and safety, ingress, egress, traffic, aesthetics, and regarding the types, the companies that come in, we just make sure that the land use is consistent with the general plan industrial and the zoning of industrial business park and airport support. Those are the focuses of our process. So yeah, and I mean, we definitely would encourage that they are well-paid jobs and that unionized. I mean, that's all encouraged. But the focus of the Development Services Department is to make sure that that we process life safety developments.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. This is great. This is something we talked about for a while. Get focus in the airport area, bring jobs, lots of jobs. I don't think it's for us to decide who or what, but I think it's important that we're succeeding. This has been a long-term goal here, and we've all known for years that airport is a gold mine, and I think this is that step that's finally going to really kick it off, and it's exciting to hear. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo the mayor's sentiments. We have something very unique here in Hollister that a lot of cities don't have, is the access to the airport. We want to market that. We want to, bring in those jobs, bring in those companies that want to work with us. And I just want to say, if this passes tonight, thank you to the Nguyen's for working throughout this whole time. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to years of success for you guys.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 2021-232, sir.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to item G1. Report from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a chance to attend the San Benito County Water Resource Agency meeting. It wasn't good news. Apparently, we're going to move potentially in the first of the year to the second tier for drought restrictions. And so based on that, I would ask that the city manager, with council's consensus, move to host a joint meeting between the county and the city of San Juan Bautista and the city of Hollister to discuss what the drought looks like moving forward. It sounds pretty dismal to me, and I would see that there could be benefit to doing that type of a meeting, as we recently did to discuss the LAFCO. And so Part of it's definitely going to be in education. I've certainly had some eyes open to me. And for the community, we are absolutely entering into a significant drought based on our current weather pattern. And so I'd like to move that forward sometime in January, February. The San Juan Bautista mayor, she's on the committee with me, and she indicated that she would also advocate for that to San Juan Bautista City Council as well. And so that concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Resendez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week I attended the Intergovernmental Committee. We were very fortunate to have presenters from Gavilan College, the high school, the Superintendent Crystal Lamonto, and Superintendent Erica Sanchez there to talk about education and what's going on with education in our community. Essentially, we got a very, very eye-opening and informative presentation from Dr. Tenenbaum from the high school. And just to summarize what he said is, they're bursting at the seams. They need a new high school, and they need it 10 years ago, and they're having problems financing it. So I would like to, if we can, have Dr. Tenenbaum come and present to the City Council the same presentation that he gave to us at the intergovernmental meeting. Some of the ideas that his consultants and he and his staff threw around, because they're bonded out, and everybody knows that, right, is potentially creating a CFD for the high school, to build a new high school, and looking at some different ways to build a new high school in partnership with the old one, and potentially Gavilan College. So I guess one question I wasn't very clear is, they cannot require or request a meeting with the developer. They cannot request CFDs, but I'm just wondering if we can ensure that process happens, not just with the high school, but all the schools. So potentially I'd like to see him and Crystal Lamonto and Superintendent Erica Sanchez, all of the superintendents here, to talk about what they're experiencing in their schools. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Perez.
Yes, I have some interesting numbers here that actually I hope that we're going to keep in mind when comes time to looking at our seniors. The Area Agency on Aging, some really interesting numbers here. The seniors are the fastest growing age group in California and the United States. The 60-plus population has grown by over 40% since 2010 in California alone. The population of California's aged 0 to 59 has increased less than 1% since 2010. The 60-plus population has increased by 48% since 2010 in San Benito County alone. 3 people per week turned 75 in San Benito County in 2020. 15 people per week turned 60 in San Benito County. 1,000 Californians are turning 65 every day for the next 12 years. Homeless seniors over age 50 are growing faster rate than any other age group. I just wanted to share these numbers with the council and the public to keep in mind about our housing issues. Social Security doesn't really get them a lot. So I'm hoping that we're going to be thinking of the future for our aging, because I'm getting up there. So, and we all are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My committee actually was covered by Vice Mayor Resendez, so thank you for the information, Mr. Resendez. We will now go to item 2, informational reports from City Council. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and move through my laundry list relatively quickly. So I'm hoping that in the near future we can get an update on the bird scooters and know what the revenues they're generating is. And I'd also like to know what the challenges are that have been faced by public safety as a result of those. I'm also wondering if at some point we could consider installing some better signage to direct people from the main thoroughfare or road out towards the airport to the police department. The signage is minimal at best, I would say. I'm hoping that at some point in the near future we can get an update from the city manager as it relates to putting ceilings or roofs or whatever we want to call them on the parklets downtown. The winter is here and the weather is challenging. Also looking for a update in the near future on the Clower Park. I had a chance to walk around it, and it looks like there's been limited progress made, but I was under the impression we were going to put up some signage that was going to speak to the specifics, and it's absent. The door in the food pantry is now missing, and so I don't know what the deal is with that, but I'd like to know. I think it's a good idea, but it's clearly neglected. Also would like to get an update from the city manager on the director position recruitments. We have several, and I understand that those initial reviews are going to happen mid-December, and so we're approaching that. Also would like to confirm whether or not directors, assistant directors, and managers are all at will positions, and discuss that further as we move forward. If some are not and there are vacancies, I think that could be a beneficial move. I'd like to request a special meeting in January to discuss the motorcycle rally. I keep hearing a large number of comments made, and I'd like to confirm truth from fiction or opinion. And the motorcycle rally will be on us very soon, and so I'd like to ask for that for council's consideration. Also like to request that we calendar. My understanding is we only have one meeting in January, and so I'd like to, in closed session, do an annual review, a performance review of the city manager's performance, the city attorneys, and the city clerks. And finally, I would like to request that there's not a formal policy that we establish one to guarantee that council agenda packets are received no later than 5 p.m. The Wednesday prior to the city council meeting. This meeting was very challenging, recognizing the packet was about 500 pages, and it didn't hit my electronic devices until 4:45 on Friday. And so that will conclude my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Resendez.
Thank you. This past weekend, I went out to Park Hill to the Arts Council is giving out mini grants, and they gave out a mini grant for an artist to complete a mosaic staircase. So it's very nice up at the community garden. I was a little bit concerned to hear about the, what is it called? Disc golf? Yeah. Did we know about that?
No, we did not.
Okay, so I completely support it. I understand what they're coming from, but I think that in terms of like issues of liability, and there's a process that we need to follow, we can't just go up. So I'd like for us to probably follow up on that. And if there's any way that we can support that, fine. But I think that we need to abide by those regulations.
Yeah, we'll look at a solution.
Okay, and then if, like I mentioned earlier, if we can bring back the issue of the city licenses, and I'd like to have a council member support me on that if possible. I would like to support Councilmember Burns on bringing back the biker rally meeting. I think it's great. We need to get some planning done and get that going sooner rather than later. It seems to always be the issue every year, and I just don't want to go through that again. I was happy to hear that the police department attended the active shooter training, given what happened in Oxford, I believe. Did you know that it was an SRO that went within 5 minutes and stopped what was occurring there? And I think the child had several rounds of ammunition left. I don't understand the pushback about the SROs or defunding the police. I just don't get it. Especially here in our community, we have a wonderful police department. And they're our first line of defense. They're our everyday heroes here. And I am extremely grateful for their service to our community. What I was wondering, as an educator and as a member of the community here, is how often are we meeting with the schools and giving them training on active shooter scenarios? And what I'm wondering, because of the cameras that help to solve the case over there, is if we're going to meet with the schools and ensure that we train them, if we can potentially do that, it might have to be in partnership with them or come from them, but can we ensure that there's cameras at all the schools as well as an added security measure? That's what I was hoping to get out of that conversation. And then last but certainly not least, I had the pleasure of attending the Lights On presentation with Councilwoman-elect Dolores Morales and Councilmember Rick Perez. We had a great time. Thank you to the rec department. They let us use the parklet, which was very, very nice and intimate, and we got to hang out with one another. We got to do some announcements. But out of everything, I think what stuck out to me the most, and this is so sentimental, and to see our police department, how they dedicated their parade to the Solano family. We all know that Sergeant Ray Solano's family he retired and they moved over to Colorado Springs, and they suffered a parent's greatest nightmare, right? A huge tragedy. Not only his 14-year-old son, but his nephew was shot and killed at the skate park. So I appreciate, I reached out to the city manager when I heard and I asked that we send flowers. I hope that we did to everybody there. And I appreciate the efforts of the police union to help cover costs. And I know that many of you also donated to the GoFundMe and lots of members from the community. And I just really, really appreciate that. I know that the family does. And I'd like to, if we can, Mr. Mayor, close in memory of Dominic Solano tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Councilmember Perez?
Yes, a couple of things. Downtown, it was an awesome parade. The parklet was fun. It was great being out there. I love seeing a live Christmas tree instead of that old metal thing that kind of like looks like 1940 something or 1840. I mean, but yeah, it was really neat to see that. And thank you. I think it was the Bordet family. Thank you for donating that. The other thing downtown. So as we're sitting there in the parklet, if you sit in a chair, you cannot see nothing because the planters are in the way. I'd like to see that. I don't know if there's a requirement of how tall the sides of the parklets have to be, but if those, I know those ones at the parklet in front of Vets are higher than in all the other ones. So I'd like to see them taken down so that actually people could sit down and see something.
Correct. I've talked to staff that built that, and in the heat of the moment on that rainy night, finishing up, they made a parklet. They made a more of a restaurant parklet, not a stage type parklet. So yeah, I've talked to them that we'll work on getting the sides down to an acceptable height.
Can I make a suggestion, Councilmember Perez? If we just get like higher chairs, maybe we don't have to cut down the parklet and some tabletops.
I think there's
Well,
a plan
I mean,
in place
the
already.
problem is, I mean, the parklets are to use, like, do rec programs out of and do some other activities, and you can't see what's going on in those parklets. And like I said, they're meant more for a restaurant, not for activities.
And actually, you know what? I could see doing both, because once you sit in the back, and if you're watching a parade or some type of event, you would want the chairs in the back to be a little bit higher. So yeah, I do agree with that. But since we're on parklets, what's going on with the covers for the parklets? I mean, I know we don't have to worry about rain very soon, but
Correct. The building department is trying to find some kind of solution. Their biggest concern is earthquake safety and wind shear safety. Because there's not an engineered plan, they haven't been signed off. But I've given them some different communities that I have gone to and found roofs and said, find out how they were able to get it done. So that's what we're working on.
And since we're downtown, let's stay downtown for a minute. I noticed before the parade that the streets were pretty dirty. There was a lot of litter. Of course, there's leaves. It's that time of year. That's no biggie. But I did reach out to staff, and they said that they actually cleaned it on Thursday, and the parade was on Saturday. So Friday night, Thursday night, downtown, there's more trash. I'd like to see that, at least right before we're going to have a parade or an event downtown, that they switch up their schedule somehow so that we can make sure that the kids sitting on the curbs can have a clean seat and not sit in the trash. And since we are still downtown, the lights on the side streets, are we making any progress on that?
Yeah, we've been working with HDA on that one, and I will follow up with them on their status.
And tree replacement program. I've had multiple complaints about we're taking out trees for necessary reasons or for whatever reasons, that we're removing trees as a city and we're not replacing any. I want a tree replacement program. Our city is starting to look bare. My district alone, right there in Tiffany and 7th Street, they took out 5 trees and none are being replaced. They haven't talked, no one's talked to them about replacing them. I have other complaints about people losing trees, and so I'd like to bring that, the council to bring that up, about doing a, I don't know if we're gonna do it as a council, or if you're just gonna put it in the budget to get a tree program and to start moving forward with replacing some of our trees.
Okay. Just so you know, I have given direction to staff to come up with a policy, so we'll get there.
And last, just a couple of comments. The speed tables, they do work. And they're put around Dunn Park on on West and Powell for the first 3 blocks. They work to slow down cars. The problem with that is, I don't think we're dealing with the issue. What we're doing is we're just pushing it to the next street, and to the next street, and to the next street. And I don't know, what worked for me, unfortunately, was tickets, towing my car. I know that Carlos was talking, or Chief was talking about the CHP was gonna do some education on popping hoods and seeing what's underneath their engines. And I just wondering if anything's happening with that. Because although the speed tables do work, and I think they're great around parks, schools, and certain areas, I'd hate to see speed bumps all over Hollister. And rubber curbs. So with the with all the traffic calming projects that are going on, I guess, Mark, this would be towards you, or Kimberly Horn, or Planning Department. When we're coming up with these plans for these traffic calming, is there any other types of, can we check to see if there's any other type of curbing besides those rubber curbs that seem to break, and from the bolts from people running them over because they can't seem to stay on the street?
Well,
they're probably speeding, that's why.
I mean, there's concrete, there's like the wheel stop type of curbs.
Mark, we're not going to go back.
Oh, we're not? Okay.
Yeah, it's
But
not
we'll
agendized,
take that
but
down and we
just-
can
yeah.
have a
Yes, no,
conversation.
I'm just, thank you, though.
Thank you.
Besides that, that's it.
Thank you. It's exciting to see all the things happening again in our town. Lots of compliments out there. I've been getting endless compliments about downtown. Matter of fact, I had somebody recently I just ran into, and they were pointing out, they said, "You live in Hollister, don't you?" I said, "I do." They said, "We went by there recently this weekend and absolutely loved your downtown, the way it's lit up and all the things that are going on in downtown." So they're really excited about that. They said they would be coming back for another visit. So all the things we have done has worked. A lot of compliments from the residents on some of the actions we're taking. Police department, the traffic enforcement's been working great, and even the speed humps. So good job, everyone. The Clower Park issue. This has gone on long enough. If it's not done, the time for the excuses is done. I mean, we asked for a firm date, and we got the Thanksgiving, and everything keeps getting pushed off. We need to have this thing done. We need to make sure next time we hire a private company that does this for a living and can get these things done quickly and on time. We cannot go through something like this again. It just really puts a stain on us, and for no reason.
The people installing the playground equipment is a private company.
Okay, but
and
whatever
that's what we're
happened,
waiting.
we need to make sure when this thing started that we get this thing done right and on
Agreed.
time. Timelines and penalties. If they're not going to get it done on time,
Right.
they're going to pay a penalty. They're going to put us off. So, and great work with some of the other things that are the safety improvements, traffic improvements from our partner, Kimberly Horn. So thank you for all of that. And that is all I have at this time. City Manager?
Sorry, do we have a consensus on the closed session meetings for the evaluation of the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk?
Yes, I think that should be an annual deal in January, so I think that's good.
Agenda item on the.
Okay, I'll make sure.
On the,
I gotta look in the camera here and I can see if heads are moving.
Do you bring back a policy on agendas due by Wednesday?
I think we had that already, and
Yeah,
I think there might have been, I think we did adjust that to, I think Wednesday or Thursday. Obviously, sometimes when they go a little long, maybe there's changes you're going through or
Right.
something, but I understand having to read through.
Correct.
It took me a good Sunday to go through it all.
And bringing forward an item on the changing the city's business license as a regulatory, we can use it as a regulatory device to be able to pull it.
Go ahead, sir.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Continue. I'd like to have a discussion or maybe that walkway. I don't know if you've heard a couple weeks ago, the man that was killed right there on McCloskey and San Felipe. Always been a dangerous walkway on, I guess it's northbound, San Felipe between Chevron. I can't remember the name of that street, but between Chevron and the light.
Chappelle.
You know, that's one of our paths that people will walk and ride, not just the homeless, but people going to unemployment, to mental health, all those county facilities. Is there something that we can come up with to, I mean, I know a cyclone fence wouldn't do much to keep them away, but it could stop somebody from getting killed.
They're working on the designs they were going to bring back to us, yes.
Okay. The other thing, bird. Yeah, I'd like to see those numbers on the bird, what's going on with that. And also with bird, I'd like to thank Katie. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the birds, you can tell when Katie's been around, she's the lady that drives around and she picks up the birds and puts them places. But a lot of times, they're always straight and in order and lined up. And I just want to thank her for that. And that's it.
Thank you. Go ahead. Manager.
I think that's all for the.
There was a request for a meeting, special meeting with San Juan Batista. And
Yes.
The county also?
Well,
Mr. Burns?
yeah, okay.
For the water.
Yeah, I just figured
that problem is coming
that was
at
a good
us
idea, but
full speed ahead.
Yeah.
And then did we agree, maybe we've already agreed to bring back a special meeting to discuss the rally and the rally
I
contract?
will say that city attorney and myself discussed that today. We were going to bring something on the next meeting on closed session, and then we can bring something on for open session on the 18th.
Okay.
So that we already had that plan. And we had the consensus on the special meeting on the drought.
The drought, correct? Yes.
Okay. And then the only thing else I wanted to thank is the HDA, the rec staff, and the public works staff for helping with the Lights On Parade. I was with family down in San Luis Obispo, but I heard how great an event it was, and it was glad to hear that was in some places 6-7 deep, and it just really excited to hear that we had a great event. So that was it.
Excellent. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No statement.
Captain.
Yes, I want to go ahead and thank Councilmember Rosendez for mentioning our sergeant. It was very devastating. Dominic was 14 years old when he was killed with his cousin, Cage Solano. His brother, Dylan, was injured. He was shot 5 times. Good news in all this tragedy is that Dylan is home.
Oh, good.
So we want to thank the council.
It's horrible. City Clerk.
I just wanted to mention that there's a special meeting this Saturday, the 11th at 9 o'clock. That'll be here in the council chambers, and that's the second public hearing on the redistricting. And then there's also a special meeting on Monday, December 13th, and that's to give the oath of office to our new council member. And that's on Monday here at 6 p.m. That's all.
Thank you. All right, we're going to now move to item G3. that city clerk?
That's you, Nova.
So this item, staff is requesting authorization and ratification of a letter opposing the 2020 California Citizens Redistricting Commission's district visualization. Staff is requesting authorization to submit a letter on behalf of the city council opposing the recent congressional district visualization. And I was wondering if Vice Mayor Resendez, if you wanted to add anything about the draft letter that's included in the packet, or if we just want to get council consensus to send the letter.
Yeah, I think we discussed it at great length. It looks good. I read it. I think everybody read it in the packet. If it's okay with the council, I'd like to move forward with it.
Okay.
Is there consensus from council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that.
Do we have any speaker cards on that item?
There are no speakers.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to item G4, the Planning Commission appointments, District 1 and 4.
Yeah.
Did you want to start with District 1, perhaps? I think you had several names. Did you have a choice?
Yeah. Thank you. Went through a lot of these, and I think I was going to, it came down to 2, and the coin toss one. No, I'm just kidding. I'd like to bring Kevin Henderson back. I think we need some experience on the commission, and then he showed up. So, yeah, that's.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think ultimately it's your decision, but I do want to point out that Mr. Henderson was in some social media groups, and he was a part of the old council that did have a lot of personal issues and caused a lot of personal issues in the past. Not only that, because I mentioned this at a public meeting, he then filed a lawsuit against the city. So, word of caution to anybody that wants to come up here. When we put or bring our personal issues to the dais, we're conducting public business, we can't get any work done. That's been proven in the past. Ultimately, it's up to each council member, but I can't sit here in good faith and not make mention of the past and some of the other struggles that we've had with this person. Ultimately, it's your decision. I support you, but I don't agree with it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, hopefully that we can all be adults and get past all this stuff, because Kevin Henderson's my new planning commissioner.
Okay, sir. District 4?
Mayor, I'm not prepared to make a decision at this point. I was waiting to make sure that only the 3 applicants were the 3, and so I'm going to ask that this be continued on my behalf, and I will definitely bring back a recommendation at the next regular scheduled city council meeting.
Okay, sir. So at this point, I believe there's only District 1 has made his decision.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a consensus for that?
Okay. For the District 4 Planning Commissioner, do you want to bring it back December 20th? Because that's really soon, or would you rather bring it back to the January 18th?
No, I'll be prepared at the 20th. Thank you for asking, though. I appreciate the consideration.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you very much. We're now item H, I, J, and K. There's no business. And there's, Mr. Vice Mayor, would you like to make your motion for the adjournment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we adjourn in memory of Dominic Solano.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Recording stopped.